I found out the kid my wife's pregnant with isn't mine, and now that I want a divorce, my family's forbidding me, saying the right thing is to step up and take care of her and the baby anyway. My name's Tiago, I'm 31, and up until a few months ago I thought my life was on track. I married Marina 3 years ago after dating for 2. She was my best friend before she became my wife. We met at a company party where I work as a mechanic, and she was a receptionist there. We always laughed at the same stuff, loved staying home watching movies, and I genuinely thought I'd found someone to share my life with. We decided to try for a kid early last year. I was pumped, already picturing a little boy running around the yard or a girl I could teach to fix cars like my dad did with me. Marina got pregnant fast, like 2 months after we stopped using protection. She was glowing, I was over the moon, and we even started setting up a little nursery in our rented apartment. My family went nuts with excitement. My mom was already knitting little sweaters, and my dad kept saying he'd give me his fishing rod to pass down to the grandkid. But then, about 4 months ago, I started noticing some weird stuff. Marina was always on her phone, locked in the bathroom, and began making excuses to go out alone. I'm going to my cousin's, I'm hitting the pharmacy, that kind of thing. I'm not the jealous type, so I let it slide at first, but one night she left her phone in the living room while she showered, and a message popped up. It was from a guy named Felipe Work. The text said, "How's the baby, kicking yet?" My heart stopped. I unlocked her phone, yeah, I knew her password, and read everything. Months of messages. He'd ask about the pregnancy, send gym selfies, and she'd reply with little hearts and stuff like "miss you." There was even a chat where she said Tiago's so excited he doesn't even suspect. The floor dropped out from under me. When she got out of the shower, I threw the phone at her and demanded to know who Felipe was. She went pale, stammered, and after 5 minutes of trying to lie, she confessed she'd been having an affair with a coworker for almost a year and the baby was his. I went silent for like 10 minutes just staring at her. Then I lost it. I yelled that she'd ruined everything, that I didn't deserve this, and she just cried, saying I didn't mean for it to happen and I still love you. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed some clothes in it, and went to my older brother Andres' place a few streets away. I spent the night spilling everything to him, and he had my back, said I needed to ditch her. Right then, the next day, I called a lawyer buddy of mine and started getting the divorce rolling. Marina blew up my phone with texts begging to talk, saying she was sorry. But I didn't reply. Then my family got involved. My mom called me crying, saying I couldn't abandon Marina at such a delicate time. My dad showed up at the shop where I work, pulled me aside and said, "Real men don't leave a pregnant wife, no matter what she did." Even Andre, who'd been on my side at first, softened up and said, "Maybe you should swallow your pride for the kid's sake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I explained that the kid wasn't mine, that she cheated for months, that I wasn't about to raise some other guy's baby like nothing happened. My mom shot back with, "But she's your wife. You made a vow, and that kid's not to blame." My dad said I'd stain the family name if I split, that everyone in town would gossip about me. My grandma, who I adore, sent me a voice message saying, "God forgives and you have to forgive too." I tried to argue. I said it wasn't about forgiveness, it was about self-respect. That I wasn't going to spend my life looking at a kid that's not mine, knowing his mom stabbed me in the back. But they wouldn't listen. My mom cried louder, my dad called me selfish, and even my aunt, who never gets involved, showed up to say I had a duty to stay because of the marriage. Marina, meanwhile, stopped begging and started playing dirty. She texted me saying if I divorced her, she'd demand alimony anyway, because we were married when the baby was conceived. My lawyer laughed at that, said she's got no legal ground to force me into anything since I'm not the bio dad. I got a DNA test to prove it, and when the results came back, 0% chance I'm the father, I showed it to the whole family at a dinner my mom insisted on throwing to sort things out. I thought the test would shut them up, but nope. My mom tossed the paper on the table and said, "Doesn't matter what that says, you're the husband, you take responsibility." My dad said I was humiliating Marina by airing it out, and my little sister, who's always been neutral, gave me a dirty look and said, "You're gonna leave a kid without a dad over your pride?" I got up from the table, walked out of my parents' house, and haven't gone back. Now I'm crashing in a rented room, the divorce is grinding through the courts, and Marina's been spotted around town with Felipe, acting like the perfect couple. She's 7 months along, belly out, and I heard he ditched her too, not wanting the responsibility. My family barely talks to me, just sends texts blaming me for everything. My mom said yesterday I'm a son she doesn't recognize anymore, and my dad's been telling our uncles I'm a coward. I look at my empty apartment. The moving box is still unpacked and feel a mix of rage and relief. I'm not raising Felipe's kid. I'm not staying with a woman who cheated in my face. But it hurts like hell to hear my family throw me under the bus to save Marina, like I'm the bad guy. I'm in therapy now, trying to get my head straight, and my lawyer says the divorce should be final soon. If you're reading this, Mom, Dad, Marina, no, I'm not carrying the weight of your betrayal. I deserve more than being someone's backup plan. That kid? Let Felipe or you guys step up because I won't. I spent the next few weeks drowning in a mix of anger and exhaustion. Work was the only thing keeping me sane, the only place where I didn't have to deal with my family's guilt trips or Marina's manipulations. My lawyer told me the divorce was progressing, but she was dragging her feet, refusing to sign certain documents, trying to delay everything. Probably hoping I'd cave. I wouldn't. Every night in that rented room staring at the ceiling, I reminded myself, I deserve better. I won't be someone's backup plan. But it still burned when I saw Marina and Felipe's pictures floating around town, her clinging to him like he was some knight in shining armor. It didn't last long. 2 weeks after I moved out, I heard from a mutual friend that Felipe had bailed. Apparently, he had no interest in playing house with a woman who cheated on her husband for him. Marina must have thought she had him wrapped around her finger, that he'd step up like I was supposed to. But guys like him don't stick around. She sent me a text that night, just one line. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time before turning off my phone. The silence from my family was deafening. My mom had gone from daily calls and messages to nothing. My dad, who used to stop by the shop just to chat, didn't even look at me when he came in now. My sister blocked me on social media. It was like I'd been erased, cast out for refusing to be their sacrificial lamb. The loneliness should have broken me, but instead, it fueled me. I started going to the gym after work, pushing my body harder than I ever had. I focused on saving money, looking for a new apartment, building a life that was mine and mine alone. But the peace didn't last. Marina showed up at my job, 7 months pregnant, standing outside the garage like she was lost. My coworker nudged me saying, "Man, your wife's here," and I almost laughed at how wrong that statement was. I wiped the grease off my hands and stepped outside, keeping my face blank. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair messy, her usual confident posture slouched. For a second, a tiny part of me, the part that had once loved her, felt something close to pity. But then I remembered the texts, the lies, the months of betrayal. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. She hesitated, shifting on her feet. "Can we talk?" "We're talking." She looked away, biting her lip. "Not here." I sighed, already regretting this, but I nodded and walked with her to the parking lot. She leaned against a car, arms wrapped around herself, and I just stood there, arms crossed. "Felipe left," she said finally, her voice small. I didn't react. "And?" She looked up at me then, like she was waiting for something, for me to say I was sorry, to offer to help. I said nothing. She sighed. "I made a mistake." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Yeah, you did." "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did." Silence stretched between us. She shifted again, glancing around like she was looking for the right words. I don't know what to do. I have no one. Not my problem." Her eyes filled with tears. "Tiago, please. I know I messed up, but we were happy once. Can't we try to fix things?" I stared at her, feeling nothing but exhaustion. "Fix things? You expect me to forget everything? To raise Felipe's kid like it's mine? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. My voice was cold now. You didn't care about me when you were sneaking around with him. You didn't care when you lied to my face for months. And now that he's gone, suddenly I'm good enough again? That's not love, Marina. That's desperation. A tear slipped down her cheek. I still love you. I shook my head. No, you don't. You just don't want to be alone. She reached for my hand and I stepped back. Don't, I warned. We're done. We've been done since the second you betrayed me. Her face crumpled. My family won't talk to me, she admitted. My friends all picked sides. I have no job, no money. I don't know how I'm going to do this alone. I exhaled slowly. That's not my burden to carry. You made your choice. Now you live with it. She sobbed then, shoulders shaking. The old me might have caved, might have tried to comfort her. But I wasn't that man anymore. I turned and walked back inside, leaving her standing there. That night, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me, and I listened. Her voice was tight with disapproval. Tiago, your wife came to see me. She's struggling, and you turned her away. That's not the son I raised. You need to do the right thing. I deleted the message without responding. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Marina stopped showing up. My family stayed distant. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally getting my life back. And then one night, I got a message from an unknown number. Felipe. We need to talk. It's about Marina. I stared at the message from Felipe, my jaw tightening. Of all the people in the world, he was the last one I expected, or wanted to hear from. A part of me wanted to ignore it, delete it, pretend it never came. But curiosity burned in my chest, and against my better judgment, I typed back. Me. What do you want? It didn't take him long to respond. Felipe. Can we meet? Me. Not happening. Say what you need to say here. Felipe. It's about Marina and the baby. I exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through my hair. I didn't want to be involved. I had made my stance clear. But something about the way he phrased it made me uneasy. I clenched my teeth before replying. Me. Talk. It took him a minute, maybe debating how much to tell me. Then his next message came through. Felipe. She told me the baby isn't mine. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my mind struggling to process that. Me. What? Felipe. She lied to both of us. My stomach twisted. I thought back to all the times she reassured me that the baby was his, the months of deception, the way she'd looked at me with tears in her eyes, begging me to forgive her. And now this? Me. How do you know? Felipe. She admitted it, said she wasn't sure who the father was. A strange mix of fury and disbelief flooded my chest. Me. So she cheated on both of us? Felipe. Looks like it. I squeezed my phone so hard my knuckles turned white, as if this situation couldn't get any worse. I should have expected it. If she could lie to me so easily, why wouldn't she lie to him? Why wouldn't she lie to everyone? My pulse pounded in my ears as I thought about it. The family that disowned me, the accusations of selfishness, the guilt tripping, all because they believed I was walking away from a responsibility that was never mine. And now it turned out Marina didn't even know who the real father was. A bitter laugh escaped me. I should have felt relief, validation, something. Instead, there was just a deep, simmering anger. Me. Why are you telling me this? Felipe. Because I thought I was the dad, and now I know I'm not. I'm out. But I figured you should know. She's been playing everyone. I didn't reply right away. My mind was spinning. If he was out, that meant Marina was completely alone now. No husband, no affair partner, no backup plan, and she had done it to herself. Me. I don't care. She made her bed. Felipe. Yeah, I figured. Just thought you deserved to hear it from me before she starts trying to twist the story. That part got my attention. Me. What do you mean? Felipe. She's desperate, man. I don't know what she'll do next. But if I were you, I'd watch my back. That sent a chill through me. Marina had already proven she was willing to manipulate and lie to get what she wanted. If she was truly out of options, what was stopping her from coming after me again? Before I could reply, Felipe sent one last message. Felipe, good luck, man. And then he was gone. I stared at the screen, my thoughts a storm of frustration, exhaustion, and anger. I wanted to believe this was the end of it, that Marina would finally accept her losses and move on. But something in my gut told me this wasn't over. And I was right. Because the next day, I got a call from my mother, her voice frantic and panicked. "Tiago, you need to come to the hospital," she said, barely able to get the words out. "It's Marina. Something's wrong with the baby." I stood there, phone pressed against my ear, my mother's words ringing in my head. The hospital. Something was wrong with the baby. I didn't know what to say, how to react. My first instinct was that this was another manipulation, another attempt to drag me back in. But the panic in her voice sounded real. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to let them deal with their mess. But no matter how much I hated Marina for what she'd done, I wasn't heartless. I sighed, rubbing my temple. What happened? My mother's breath was shaky. She was in pain, Tiago. A lot of pain. She collapsed. They rushed her to the hospital, and they're saying it might be premature labor. My jaw tightened. That wasn't good. She was only around 7 months along, way too early for a baby to be born without complications. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly. "Why are you calling me?" "Because she asked for you," my mother admitted, her voice laced with something between hope and desperation. "She was crying, saying she needed to talk to you. Please, son, just come." I wanted to say no. I wanted to remind her that Marina wasn't my problem anymore, that the baby wasn't mine. But there was something in my mother's voice that made my stomach turn. If Marina really was in trouble, if something serious was happening, did I really want to be the kind of person who ignored it? With a heavy sigh, I grabbed my keys. "I'm on my way." The hospital smelled like antiseptic and worry. The fluorescent lights made everything look sterile, too bright, too cold. When I walked into the waiting area, my mother shot up from her chair, relief washing over her face. My father was there too, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "She's in there," my mother said, pointing toward a door down the hall. "The doctors are monitoring her. They don't know if they can stop the labor." I nodded, shoving my hands into my pockets. "And the baby?" "Too early," she whispered, eyes glistening. "If it happens now, there could be complications. Breathing issues, underdeveloped organs. It's risky." I swallowed hard. I wasn't supposed to care. This wasn't my child. This wasn't my problem. But hearing that a baby, any baby, was in danger still twisted something deep inside me. Before I could respond, the door opened and a nurse stepped out. "She's asking for Tiago," she said, glancing around. "Is he here?" My father's jaw tensed, but he didn't say a word. My mother just looked at me, pleading. I exhaled slowly, then nodded. "I'll go." The room was dimly lit, the steady beeping of machines filling the silence. Marina lay in the hospital bed, her face pale, her eyes red and swollen. When she saw me, fresh tears welled up. "Tiago," she whispered, her voice raw. "You came." I pulled up a chair but kept my distance. "What's going on?" She sniffled, wiping her face. "They don't know if they can stop the labor. They're trying, but the baby might come early." I nodded, waiting. There was more. There was always more. Her lower lip trembled. "I needed to see you. I needed to tell you I'm sorry." I clenched my jaw. "Marina, no, please." She cut me off, shaking her head. "Let me say this. I've ruined everything. I know that. I hurt you in ways I can't take back. And now, Now I might lose everything. And I just needed you to know I regret it. All of it. I studied her, trying to read between the lines. Was this real, or was this another attempt to manipulate me? She looked different. Smaller. Fragile in a way I'd never seen her before. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. I don't know what you expect me to say. Nothing, she whispered. I just didn't want to go through this without you here. I looked away, staring at the monitors, the IV drip. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't let myself get pulled into this. But at that moment, none of it mattered. Not the betrayal, not the lies. There was a human life on the line. A baby who had no fault in any of this. I'm not staying, I said finally. But I hope the baby makes it. A sob racked her body, but she nodded. Thank you. I stood up, heading for the door, ready to walk away for good. But just as I reached for the handle, her voice stopped me in my tracks. Tiago? There's something else. I turned, narrowing my eyes. What? She hesitated, then swallowed hard. I know who the real father is. My blood ran cold. What? She closed her eyes, a fresh wave of tears spilling down her face. It's someone you know. My stomach twisted. Who? She looked up at me, her expression filled with something I couldn't quite place. And then she said a name that made my entire world tilt on its axis. Andre. The room spun. My breath caught in my throat. My brother. I stood there, frozen, the weight of Marina's words slamming into me like a truck. My brother. My own flesh and blood. My mind refused to process it, refused to connect the dots, but deep down, something clicked. The way Andre had softened after initially backing me up, the way he'd tried to convince me to stay, the way he'd looked at me when I walked away from the family dinner, almost like he was carrying some invisible burden. My fists clenched, my breath shallow, my pulse a violent drum in my ears. You're lying, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But Marina shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm not, Tiago. I wish I was, but I'm not. It was him. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. This betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just my wife. It wasn't just some random guy. It was Andre, my brother, the person I had trusted more than anyone. I turned on my heel and stormed out of the hospital room, ignoring Marina's voice calling after me. My body moved on autopilot, my vision tunneled, my mind consumed by rage and disbelief. I barely registered my mother standing up as I passed the waiting area, barely heard her voice asking what was wrong. I needed to see him. I needed answers. I drove like a madman, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly I thought it might snap. When I reached Andre's house, I didn't bother knocking. I pounded on the door, my fists slamming against the wood, my chest heaving. After what felt like an eternity, the door swung open, and there he was, my brother, the man who had stood by me when I first found out about Marina's betrayal, the man who had offered me a place to stay when my life crumbled, the man who had all along been hiding the biggest betrayal of them all. His face paled the second he saw me, his expression shifting from confusion to guilt in a heartbeat. That was all the confirmation I needed. Tell me it's not true, I growled, stepping forward, invading his space. Tell me Marina's lying. He didn't. He just looked away, jaw clenched, shoulders slumping. The silence was deafening. A laugh, bitter and hollow, escaped me. You're unbelievable, I spat. You stood there, listened to me pour my heart out, let me think it was some other guy, all while knowing it was you. Tiago! Don't, I cut him off, voice shaking. Don't you dare try to explain this away. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I screwed up, okay? I know that. It was a mistake. A mistake? I repeated, my voice rising. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday, A mistake is scratching a car. Sleeping with my wife? That's not a mistake, that's a choice. A conscious, disgusting choice. He looked at me then, guilt etched into every line of his face. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a humorless laugh. Well, congratulations. You did. The air between us was thick, suffocating. I wanted to hit him, wanted to wipe that regretful expression off his face, but what would that solve? It wouldn't erase what he'd done. It wouldn't make the betrayal hurt any less. So instead, I took a step back. You're dead to me, Andre. His face fell, his eyes pleading, but I didn't give him a chance to respond. I turned around and walked away. That night, I packed my bags. The room I had been renting felt suffocating, filled with memories of a life I no longer wanted to be a part of. My family had turned against me. My wife had betrayed me. My brother had shattered whatever was left of my trust. There was nothing left for me here. So I left. I moved to a different city, started fresh. I found a new job at a repair shop, made new friends, built a life that wasn't tainted by the ghosts of my past. It wasn't easy. The pain didn't vanish overnight. There were nights I lay awake, wondering how everything had gone so wrong, wondering if I'd ever be able to trust again. But time, as it always does, healed the wounds. 2 years passed, and one day, in the most unexpected way, I met someone new. Her name was Sophia. She walked into the shop one afternoon, frustrated about a car issue, and something about her fire, her wit, her effortless kindness, drew me in. We talked, then we talked some more. And before I knew it, I was laughing again, feeling something I thought had been stolen from me forever. Hope, love, happiness. It wasn't instant. I took my time. I let myself heal. And when I finally let her in, I realized something. Marina and Andre didn't break me. They didn't define me. They were just a chapter in my story. And now I was writing a new one, a better one, a happier one where I chose myself. And this time, I chose right.